Hi Steve, I hope you're well, and I'd like to welcome you onto DJ's Denim and Leather on Voodoo Radio.
Hi Darren, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Right, first question. A question that I do ask a lot, but could I just ask you what inspired you to get into music and ultimately want to form a band, and how did you get it together, so to speak?
Well, Roy and myself are cousins. I don't know whether you know that, but we obviously grew up together.
Right.
And we were teenagers together in the early 70s when there was a lot of great guitar bands around. Glam rock was all over the TV, T-Rex, Slade, Alice Cooper, and we just wanted to be like that. That's what we wanted to do. So from the age of 14, I think probably, we both started to learn the guitar, and we used to kind of badger anyone who could play the guitar to teach us a couple of chords, to get by.
Yeah.
And I suppose by the time we were 16, we were introduced to a friend of a friend. That was Phil on the drums.
Right.
So he joined us, and we became a three-piece. We were known as Blue Ice in those days, and we would play, social clubs and that sort of thing, working men's clubs, and we'd play Beatles and Stones and covers. But to be honest, Darren, we didn't play them very well. And so we decided, okay, let's take a year off, and write some of our own songs. And that was the time when Rick joined, in about 1978, I suppose. And that's when it all really started to come together. About around that time when Rick joined, he was a decent songwriter, a very good guitar player. And that's when we came up with a name as well, a new name.
Well, funny you should mention the name, because I think you probably know what I'm going to refer to here, but it's quite well documented that it was misspelt at the start.
It is misspelt.
But, yeah, so how did that come about then?
Well, I can't exactly remember how the name came about. I know Phil was the one who put it into the hat. He said he'd heard it in a song lyric or something like that. We thought, well, yeah, it sounds classy. It sounds French.
Yeah.
So it's got to be spelt with a double L-E at the end. So that's what we did. That's how we spelt it. And we went out and we decided to get a load of stickers and badges and business cards printed up. And then somebody pointed out to us, well, actually, you don't spell it like that. You spell it with one L. But it was too late by then. So we kept it.
I actually think it looks better, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to just ask you that was all. So, I mean, there was a rock scene happening around the Hertfordshire area, and well, obviously, and St Albans. Bands like Bleak House, Toad the Wet Sprocket, Eye Treason, Stormtrooper. What were those early days like then, Steve?
Yeah, all those bands, fantastic bands. In fact, there was a very, very healthy music scene, late 70s, early 80s, around St Albans and the home counties.
Yeah.
And the good thing about it was, Darren, there was a lot of venues that would host live bands. And that was very fortunate, of course, for all of us. And it created some great opportunities for all the young bands to get together and play together. And although there was some rivalry, obviously, there were no big egos that said, we want to be top of the bill, we want to go on first. And as a result of that, we shared the billing. There were some lasting friendships formed during those years that continue even on to today. But, secretly, I do like to think that Clientelle led the way to some extent. I have to say that, of course. Of course. No, I mean, obviously, I'll look at the posters and the billboard stickers and whatever, and you can see that you'll headline one show, and then say Bleak House might do another, or Toad will do another. So you could see what was going on there. It was very much a shared sort of thing. Right, I've got to ask you this question. What was your take, or I don't know whether I want to ask it from today's perspective or from back then. What was your take on what was termed of the new wave of British heavy metal movement? Were you aware at first that you were playing a part in it? Well, not really. Not really. I mean, you've heard the expression, people jumping on the bandwagon. It's a common saying, but we we didn't jump on the new wave of British heavy metal bandwagon, but I suppose we were kidnapped and put there by someone else. Because Clientelle are not your typical heavy metal sound. And I think most people would say that. And some people question, why we are within that bracket. But I suppose live we were a heavier band, a heavier sound.
Yeah.
But the Clientelle sound is very different to some of the new wave of heavy metal bands that you hear. So I kind of think we were pigeonholed with those bands. To be honest, Darren, it did us a few favours because it opened some doors, so I'm not complaining by any stretch, yeah.
Well, no, and the reason that I like to ask that question, because obviously now even more than ever, there's so much they're in the club, but they're not in the club. They started too early, or they were a little bit too late, and the sort of 79 to sort of 83 period, which you were very, very active at that in that time. You're in the club, sort of thing, and I just have to sort of smile sometimes at some of the things I read, But I wanted your take on that, really.
Well, we've been featured in some of the books that have been written about that period, so Clientelle are in there. Yeah. So I guess we're there.
which leads me on to quite famously, you were compared to a couple of bands by Derek Oliver of Krang, I believe. A cross between Motorhead and Judas Priest. Now, I for one can't see that, really. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but...
Yeah, I think at the time it was quite strange. I think we're all in agreement that it's not a very accurate comparison.
No.
I suppose the closest similarity is that some of our songs were played at breakneck speed, very fast.
Yeah.
Live. But on record, no, I can't see that. And I do wonder whether the journalist in question even bothered to listen to us at all. Maybe listen to a snippet and think, oh yeah, okay, we'll put them in there. But no, not a very good comparison at all.
Well, no. I only heard this today on one of your earlier interviews. There was a word about the gig you did with Motorhead where you didn't manage to get a sound check and let me bought you a crate of beer. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. In fact, we were waiting for a sound check, and then Motorhead's road manager. I'll tell you who it was. Funny enough, it was the brother of the wrestler Big Daddy.
Oh right.
Yeah, it was him, and he said to us, "Sorry lads," he said, "there's no time for a sound check." So we thought, okay, that's a shame. Right. So we wandered down into the dressing room, tail between our legs, as it were, and a couple of minutes later, knock on the door, open up. There's Lemmy with a crate of beer, big smile on his face. Sorry guys, sorry about that. It can't be helped, but hopefully this will ease the pain.
Oh, well, fair play. Fair play to you. That's nice to hear. So then, Steve, we're going to have a listen to our first piece of music. Could you just tell me what it is, please?
So the first piece of music we listened to is Skyflyer. This was recorded in Quest Studios around 1979, right, and was the first single. It became a bit of an anthem to the band, really. We used to close many gigs with this song. We'd have people singing along, people jumping up on stage, joining in. It was a great crowd pleaser, great sing-along.
move on then to the album. Now, what I'm going to quote here is not my words. I've read this. It's regarded as a fine piece of rock and metal music. The songs are really strong. What was the recording experience like?
Right. Well, it's nice to hear that it's regarded in that way, because we were very young and inexperienced in a sense, and we were very grateful for the expertise of Dave Cook, who was the engineer and producer of Quest Studios. He kind of guided us through the whole process, really. But I think the very fact that we were playing a lot live, we were playing a lot of live gigs, so we were really tight when we recorded the album, and it didn't take very long for us to put the tracks down onto the tape. In fact, I still have a recording of us sitting at the mixing desk at Quest Studios, listening to the playback, listening to Rick laying down some of his vocal parts and guitar parts. It's really good to listen to it, because it's quite amusing listening to our kind of banter from the sound control room to Rick in the recording studio.
That does sound brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I talk to bands about essentially their first recordings, there's a lot of great memories there, aren't they? From that time. We'll move on to some of the later stuff in a moment, but so you played a lot of shows at the Horn of Plenty. What's your memories of the venue?
The Horn, the good old Horn. Probably one of our favourite venues. It was just hot. It was stuffy, a sticky floor, wall to wall with people who just loved listening to live music. And I don't think we ever did a duff gig there, to be honest. If we weren't on top of our game on the night, the audience picked up the slack. They were there cheering, clapping, stamping their feet. And in fact, the Horn of Plenty, as it was, or the Horn, is now one of the few venues that still hosts live bands today in this, in the St Albans area, and it's great that the tradition is still living on.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's good to hear.
There was something I wanted to mention, Darren, and it was it kind of centres around the attitude we had as a band. We were young guys, 20, 21, 22. We didn't really have much of a clue about management and promotion, but we went all out on promotion, self-promotion, and it was the key, really, that got us where we eventually ended up. Yeah. Because T-shirts, all sort of merchandise, we promoted those. We had a monthly fanzine that we would sell at gigs. The posters, the badges, stickers. We would make up ridiculous news stories just so we can get some coverage in the local rag, just to really get the band's name known. It was a tireless effort on our part, and I think at the end of the day that was why Phil left. He got a little bit disheartened, because all the work we put into promoting the band, we weren't getting anything back, we weren't getting any rewards, and I think he just felt, I can't do this anymore. So I just think, and you mentioned a lot of the other bands, Bleak House and Stormtrooper and High Treason and Toad and all the others. They did the same thing. People hard-working bands, and we were fortunate that there were a lot of venues that would give us the leg up to get our sound heard by as many as we could. So a lot to be grateful for, but a lot of hard work as well.
Oh, I could imagine. Absolutely, yeah. Right then, so we're moving on to our second piece of music now then, Steve. Could you just tell us what it's going to be, please?
So this is the opening track of the album, Destination Unknown. This is a track called Play to Win. When we recorded this in 1981, it was quite a new song. So we were quite excited about it. It was fresh. We played it a lot. We practiced it. It was tight. I love this song. I love the guitar break in the song. It just chugs along nicely. A good opener.
There was a lineup change when Phil left and Martin Whitwick came in. Did that change Clientelle sound, in your opinion?
Yes, it did, and I think that's inevitable when you get a change of drummers, because the drummer is the backbone of the band. And I think the recordings that we made at that time confirm, that our sound was beefed up. I think with Whitwick, he was a very different drummer to Phil, very heavy, very solid, and as a result, I would say the songs that we wrote when Whitwick was with us were kind of more mature, and even the old songs that we played with Whitwick became heavier. Right. Maybe that's where the new wave of British heavy metal tag came along as well. But yeah, it was a different sound, but not in a bad way.
No, of course not. I mean, saying that, I mean, there is other slight lineup changes. I mean, when Bernie Devine on guitar, but was he with the band earlier on as well?
He was, before Rick joined the band. While we were still Blue Ice, I believe. We were playing social clubs, and Bernie was with us. He wasn't with us for very long. He was an old school friend of Phil's, actually.
Right.
And awesome guitarist. From the day I met Bernie, I was blown away by his guitar playing. He's very talented. But yeah, he was with us for a short time. And then he rejoined when Rick left.
Right.
Rockit and I was scratching our heads thinking, right, who do we know? And Bernie's name obviously was top of the list.
And Terry Cox on drums, is that right?
Yeah. Terry was the drummer with Moonstone. Again, a very solid, straight drummer.
Yeah. That's when you recorded like Jet Set and Black Cloud.
Yes. Yeah. We wrote a lot of new material. In fact, I think, Darren, in hindsight, I think it was probably a mistake to keep the name Clientelle when Rick left, because playing live, I would say only 20% of the set list contained material from the old days, from the album or whatever. So yeah, I'd say it was probably a mistake to keep the name. However, we did, and we wrote a lot of new material. So the Jet Set, Black Cloud, and 71.
Yeah,
71 still bopping.
Yeah.
They were kind of like the cream of the new songs. We went down to the studio owned by Jim Rodford of the Kinks, of course, and we recorded it there with his son Steve producing, and he did a good job. I mean, it's a typical 80s sound, particularly the drum sound, because Steve is a drummer. So it's a big echoey drum sound, but yeah, I like it.
Right then, on to our third piece of music. What will that be, Steve?
So I think this is a good reflection of the band after Rick had left, because Clientelle took on a new persona, shall we say, in 1984, with Bernie Devine and Terry Cox and Rockit and myself. So we wrote a lot of new material. This was one of the few songs that I actually dabbled in and wrote the lyrics to. It's called 71, Still Bopping, and it's kind of just about being stuck in time, being stuck in the early 70s. Nothing wrong with that, of course. But I love the whole sound of this track. It sounds like something from the 70s, in fact.
Everything we did was for fun. But the years
couple of things I want to ask you. Tell me a little bit about Wood Nymph.
Wood Nymph. Do you know what? I don't know a lot about Wood Nymph other than he used to turn up. He used to turn up at our gigs with a suitcase and plant fireworks and bombs around the stage, and then set them off at various times, and then disappear. That's all I really know about it, to be honest. Well, he was one of Rick's associates.
Ah, right, okay. Well, again, when I'm only a bit of research and reading, sometimes the gigs were costing you more than you were actually getting in because of the pyrotechnics you were using.
Yes.
But, yeah. I mean, some of the pictures that I've seen are quite amazing, some of the stuff that were going on around you know. And then obviously there's just a quick one, there's the Python story.
Oh, the Python story, yes. That's mythical now, the Python story. So the strange thing is, Darren, last minute we were phoned up to ask to fill in for an event that was happening down at the Guildford College of Law, I think it was. Mm. So they'd booked a 60s dance band for their Halloween evening, who pulled out. So at last minute, we were asked to go and play by this agency. So we went in there, we set up, we started playing. But it wasn't what they were expecting at all. However, the act that was on before us was a young girl with a wicker basket, and she would play this music where the snake would come out of the basket and do all the stuff. She thought it'd be good fun to let it out of the basket during our set. She thought it would liven things up a little bit, and we were playing, and the snake was slithering across the stage, making its way towards Phil's drums.
Right.
Yeah, anyone who knows the band would know that Phil's eyesight wasn't the greatest, so he was completely oblivious to this.
Right.
Anyway, I can't remember quite how the snake got back into the basket, but he did. And then they asked us, well, you know, you're not really what we wanted. Don't play the second set, but we'll pay you your full fee, and off you go. So that's what happened.
Right, okay. Right. I just wondered if you wanted to say, well, first of all about Rick's passing and obviously Phil's.
Yes, well, the thing is with Rick, I mean, it was just a shame the way it happened, because around the time of the millennium, Record Collector brought out their Millennium edition of their annual book, and Destination Unknown was listed in Record Collector.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, the price was something like 120 quid or something. I know. You know, couldn't believe it. So we decided, we kind of, on the back of that, we contacted one another and thought it would be nice to get a CD edition out. It's about time. So this is the first time I've spoken to Rick, probably in about 10 years, to be honest.
Right.
So he was up for it, and he said he's got all the software to put it all together. Let's not just stop at a CD. Let's build a website for the band. In fact, let's do a couple of reunion shows. So that's what we did.
Right.
And, you know, it was great. I mean, Rick was busy anyway, playing with other bands. He was a working musician. So it was nice to kind of reconnect with him, which we all did. The last show we did with Rick was in 2003. Funny enough, up in your neck of the woods. It was in Wolverhampton.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and then we kind of lost touch again, but reconnected on Facebook, and within about 2 months, you know, there was a message appeared on his account that he suddenly died of a suspected heart attack. And, you know, what? This is Rick. It was a shock. It was a shock. But sadly, along with Rick passing, so did the whereabouts of the master tapes to the album, because he was the custodian of those. And to this day, Darren, I don't know what happened to them. They've gone, disappeared, which was a shame. But it didn't stop us, you know, it didn't stop us to do a remaster of the album, as you probably know, some years later.
Yeah.
But we had a memorial concert for Rick, arranged by, I mean, he had a lot of contacts, a lot of friends. In fact, Mick Mustafa from Toad, he performed on the evening. Gary Scott, another local musician, he performed. And of course, Clientelle, well, it was myself, Bernie, and Dave Ashcroft, we kind of put together 3 songs and played in Rick's honour.
Yeah.
And it was just great. I mean, we did Skyflyer, and everyone was singing along, and Rick would have absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
And he was in the middle of I think he just joined a Pink Floyd tribute band, and they'd been recording versions of Floyd songs, and Rick had recorded a lovely version of the guitar solo in Another Brick in the Wall. So at the end of the evening, I wasn't involved in this, but some of the other guys, Rick's friends, musicians, played the backing track to Rick's guitar solo. It was quite a moving finale to the evening.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, real shame. And then obviously, sadly, Phil passed away as well.
Yeah. Sadly, Phil he'd been unwell for some time, Darren, and in typical Phil style, he was a fighter to the end, and he was fighting it, but I got a call one evening, and he broke the news to me that he's only got a couple of weeks, and we had quite an emotional discussion on the telephone. But saying all that, I'm so glad that he was still around to see the On the Dole reissue of Destination Unknown, because he was thrilled to bits with that. He was blown away by the sound quality. Dear old Phil, he got Rockit and myself some promotional caps to wear, promoting the album. And he was chuffed to bits with it. So I'm so glad that he was around to enjoy that moment. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. Am I right in what I've read that there's quite a lot of archive stuff still? You still got quite a lot of it in your possession.
Yeah, well, to be honest, yes, we have. That's one of the things I think I'm really glad we did. We kept everything, to be honest. Recordings and rehearsals. One recording I would love to see get the light of day is the live tapes cassette that we put out.
Right.
Because it was a couple of years after, probably 18 months after the album. We were let down by another record company that promised us a single. And we thought, it would be great to put something out, because the band had changed. The band had changed quite a bit. Mm. So we recorded one of the concerts from the Hawkwind tour.
Right. Yeah.
And it was a good recording, and we thought this would be good. So we put it out on a cassette tape, along with some spoken diary entries that we'd done during the tour.
Yeah.
And sold it. It very quickly sold out with gigs. But we still have that, and it will be nice to see that have a proper CD release.
Right. Okay.
There's a lot of archive material,
almost
audio, and and visual stuff. Yeah,
it almost sounds like it'd make a nice box set to me, to be honest. But if somebody wanted to put that out,
it would.
There. So we're going to have one last track then, Steve. Could you tell us what it is then, please?
Yep. So it was myself and Rockit, Rick and Dave Ashcroft on drums. 2002, we did a couple of reunion shows at the Horn of Plenty in St Albans. It's just a lovely recording of this track. I mean, Missing Presumed Dead, the closing track of the album, is probably my favourite anyway. But I just love Rick's guitar work on this is phenomenal. At the end of the track, where he comes in with his delay and his echo, and his guitar just swims around, and it's beautiful. I love it.
the breath of the land to the sea. Old man in a shabby great coat, it's not made of felt wood. Carries his strength and face to both you and me. Suddenly a black cloud came over the shore. Journey would have to be made to the mountains of doom. But on his travels the old man was struck by the devil. Into the earth leaving traces of gold in the moon. Don't let them know. No, they won't understand. Feeling of emptiness, oh, down in the hand. No, they won't listen. Writings on the wall. Ring is now burning. Hole in your soul. No, there isn't any fear up there at all. Young companions help you till the fall. No, you've got to look high up in the sky, flying high. Suddenly he was back on top of a charger. Number 2 white shine on the tops of players. Once like a town defeated the powers of evil. Courage and strength never be tested again. still sort of remember him.
One question that I always ask at the end of an interview, have you any messages out there for the fans?
Oh, you caught me on the hop now. Message for the fans. Well, we know the fans are still out there because they follow, and many of them follow us on Facebook and on YouTube.
Yeah. And
a lot of them talk about the good old days, how much it was all part of their growing up, with the band. And what I'm pleased about, Darren, is that as a band, we were really close to the fans, not just at the gigs, but socially as well. And there was a hardcore group of fans who would follow us everywhere. And it was just so good to be close with them.
Yeah.
So I know many of them are still sort of going to concerts and enjoying the live music scene. And kind of reminiscent, I suppose, about the old days.
Yeah.
But it was great. I mean, we were just so grateful for the support we had during those days. We could guarantee to fill a 54-seater coach, taking the guys up to a gig we were doing in Northampton, for example.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. I mean, they were the best. They were the best.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So then, Steve, I'd like to thank you for taking time out to talk to me on DJ's Denim and Leather on Voodoo Radio, and wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you, Darren. It's been fantastic. I always love reminiscing about the good times with the band, and it's been a pleasure. A pleasure, mate.